Good Thursday to everybody. Thanks for clicking on to today's Vogan's European Outlook. Yes, I'm in the truck, and also I did happen to say Tuesday in yesterday's video when it was obviously Wednesday, so I do apologise for that. Getting a little bit confused in the days in my old age. I suppose you could blame the night shift mode for that. Well, that's the excuse I'm going to make anyway. But we are rapidly approaching the very end, middle portion of meteorological summer. So I thought it would be quite a good time to kind of gauge and discuss a little bit about what was said and what has taken place for the month of June and the first 11 or so days of July. Now, we all know it has been chilly. There's no question about that. We had a very short lived spell of warmer than average during the second half of June. But overall, it has been very, very cool, very disappointing, and at times wet. But remember, June was actually quite a dry month overall. July, on the other hand, is starting to turn out fairly wet actually, with even northeastern Aberdeenshire seeing a full month's worth of rain falling within a 24-hour period as that area of low pressure developed, drifted up the eastern side of the UK, and the associated frontal system became kind of trapped beneath an area of high pressure to the north. That allowed the rains just to continue driving in off the North Sea for a prolonged period of time. We also seen some fairly significant rainfall elsewhere in more southern areas of the UK as well. But I'm going to kind of skip a little bit back and forth here. But I thought it was interesting first and foremost to start off by showing you this was the March 1st through May 14th anomaly. So the majority of the springtime, these are graphics that were sent in to me kindly by our friend Richard Trott, and you can see here that we had quite a strong block over Baffin Straits and Greenland, Iceland, with the negative bang slap over the central North Atlantic region and southwest of the continent here, extending into the Canary Islands. You notice here there's quite a difference here now in the period between the 1st of June and I think it's what the 6th of July, and you can see here that we've almost kind of reversed the upper pattern. So for the majority of spring, we had almost the opposite of what we've had for the first 30 plus days, 30 to 40 days of summer so far, with a negative, not a positive, but a negative over Greenland and a strong positive over the central North Atlantic. With the Azores high pressure has not really been quite as dominant in its position. It's actually been more over towards the western North Atlantic, over towards the Bermuda region, that we've had a stronger high pressure system compared to the Azores high. Sometimes you find early on in the season, kind of late spring into early summer, you have the Azores high a little bit stronger over the eastern Atlantic versus a weaker Bermuda high, but it's actually been a little bit more the opposite so far. But it's the question mark is, where are we going through the middle and second half of this summer season? And that is going to be the big question. Now, this is the month of June, and you can see here we obviously end up 0.4 below average for June in the UK, and we've also had a cooler than average across the majority of France and Spain and Portugal as well. So it's not been a particularly great overall summer in terms of heat in much of the West, but Central and Eastern Europe, it's been a different matter altogether. And remember back in the late spring when I put out my summer forecast, I did say that the areas of driest was likely where the ridge and the heat was going to go during the course of this summer, and essentially that is playing out quite nicely. But this is the month of July so far. Through the first 10 days of the month, firmly below average for the UK, Ireland, and really the majority of Western Europe here. Again, you can draw a line right down the middle. Very warm summer so far in the east. Very cool, disappointing summer with back and forths in terms of precipitation distribution across the west. This, by the way, is off the GFS extended from now. So, in other words, the 9th of July, so it's going back a couple of days ago, all the way through to the 13th of August. of the GFS ensemble, and it's shown a firmly below average UK and Ireland. Let's have a look at another model here. This is the ECM extended ensemble for the next 46 days. So this is Tuesday the 9th of July, right the way through till Saturday the 24th of August. And that there is quite something. It's not really, it's having a really hard time getting warmer than average temperatures into the UK, even through the next 46 days. Another look at a model. This is the CFS V2 long range. This is the next 45 days. And with the exceptions in northern UK and Western Ireland, it too is indicating cooler than average temperatures right the way through to the 24th of August. Now, almost based on this, based on what's happened, and based on the long range models, and not just one out of several, but actually, you could argue the majority of these models are now suggesting that the next 45 days is going to be average to below average. Given how cool it's been through the first half of summer, this could be only the fifth summer in the last 30 years to average below average. That it really is quite something, especially given the overall warming backdrop of the land areas, the oceans, and the atmosphere in general. This could actually turn out to be quite a remarkable summer in itself. Now, even for last summer, it's important to note if you take aside the record warm June, July was mediocre and so was August. And probably if June wasn't as extremely warm as it was, then summer even last year may have ended up being slightly below average in terms of the temperature. So what really is actually going on here? Well, that is obviously the big question that we aren't entirely sure about. I have to be honest and say that one of the aspects that's going to be incorrect with regards to this summer is the fact that I called warmer than average. Now, this was the rough and ready picture in my head of the June through August period as a whole. A mixture of warm and cool in this area here with a slice. I incorporated Spain and Portugal warmer than average, and the reason why, with frequent hot spells, is because of the drought over eastern Iberia. I thought the ridge may have been more attracted to the dry ground feedback loop kicking in between dry and hot sunshine. So I actually incorporated southern France and most of Iberia. But it's actually starting to look a wee bit like, yes, Spain is likely to warm things up later in July and through the month of August, but generally, you could probably draw a line a little bit more incorporating the mix of warm and cool even into Spain and Portugal for the summer as a whole. But it's turning out to be that, yes, atmospheric pressure wise, I thought we would see lower pressure across the northwest, higher pressure across the southeast, and a lot of that is based upon the soil moisture content. If we look back up at this chart here, including other aspects, and remember, we've still got the month of August yet, we still don't know in terms of the tropics what kind of distribution heat wise we will see shifting northwards here. Sorry, this is obviously quite a lengthy article trying to get back to the appropriate chart here. But the drought situation here was this, and this was one of the reasons why I had the atmospheric profile of lower heights across the UK, Ireland, and Western Europe, and above average heights across the south and east, is because of the drought developing over the central and eastern portion of the continent. But nonetheless, this is a very, very interesting overall concept. So this is what I had as a whole. Overall, a slightly warmer and wetter than average summer is expected for the UK and Ireland. Slightly warmer, not blowtorch warmer, but I thought warmer and wetter than average for the UK as a whole, for the UK and Ireland, and France and the Low Countries, and even parts of Scandinavia too. Drier and well above average across South and East Europe. Let me know in the comments section below. Do you think the summer forecast is doing okay? I don't think it's been perfect, but I don't also think it's been a complete write-off. And remember, this is only the first half. But let's break down what was said month by month. And remember, you have to allow for error here, because the overall idea is one thing, but specifically talking about a specific type of pattern at a specific time, months in advance, is near impossible. It's guesswork. But the overall idea, after a cool start to the month, this is for June, this was the forecast. You can see the link in the description below the video. After a cool start to the month, it may turn more unsettled, and overall a mixture of warm spells and dry, cool spells. Cool, dry first half to likely to be followed by a warmer, possibly wetter second half. We did see that to an extent. Near average to slightly below average temperature, and average to below average rainfall for the UK. The UK maximum for June was 30. That was my prediction. What happened? 30.5 was the maximum for June in the UK. So all in all, I think it's safe to say that June has turned out not too bad. Let's have a look at July and see what it was showing here. July has probably the best shot at the longest and warmest period of the summer. Well, we're not seeing that. So that is an error in my opinion. And so I shall go warmer but slightly drier than average overall for the UK. It looks as if it's going to be cooler and probably wetter than average. So therefore, the month of July is subject, in my opinion. The UK maximum 32 Celsius. I think unless we get a last blast surge of heat at the very end of this month, I can't see us even getting near 32 Celsius, or even 30 Celsius, should I say. July could be moderate to severe heat event from Iberia to Turkey. Well, we're seeing the heat, but it's further east across the continent here. And for the month of August, well, we've obviously got half of July still to go, but I'll say it anyway. With the tropics becoming more involved, I suspect we have, like June, quite a mixed month with spells of high and low pressure bringing highly variable weather. Days of warm and sunny interspersed with low pressure bringing wet and windy, as well as cool days. UK maximum 33 Celsius. So, like I say, be honest. Let me know in the comment section below what you think. Remember that the outlooks for the monthlies are different to the overall seasonal forecast, because June in the outlook has actually played out not bad. I think I've scored an 8.5 out of 10. Again, you can let me know your opinion on that scoring. But in terms of the month of July, there has been a tweak, because obviously we're getting closer to the time period, so therefore I can predict a little bit more accurately and with a little bit more specifics in terms of an overall pattern for the monthly outlook as opposed to the summer forecast as a whole. So what was said for the month of July in terms of the outlook? I expect to see near average temperatures and rainfall overall for the UK and Ireland. Warmer from Iberia to the Balkans up to the Baltics, with a very hot in the east and southeast of Europe, wetter northwest, drier southeast. So the take home from this is the near average in both temperature and rainfall. I think it's going to be on the cooler and wetter side overall for the month of July. So therefore, I would likely say that it's going to be a lower score. June 8.5 out of 10. I think July so far, based on what we're seeing, I think it will be a lesser score than that, if I'm being honest. So we will wait and see what happens. But certainly it is interesting what is taking place here. This was the ideas that I had in terms of the ridge and jet stream position during the month of July. And it's not too bad, and again, it's swaying away from the overall seasonal forecast. But high pressure over the two warm areas, both in the North Pacific and the North Atlantic here, and region in the United States over the central region here. But that position of high pressure over the North Atlantic means that we had more of a west to northwesterly flow over the UK and Ireland. I think that is playing out quite well. And I think generally speaking, you can see where I got the overall ideas from and how it's playing out so far. because let's have a look and see what the is what's being said. So there's some interesting stats being thrown around with regards to July so far and the summer so far. But this is an interesting tweet here by Andy Hazelton. This is the 365-day sea surface temperature change over the North Atlantic. And look at how different it is now. This is obviously a yearly change in terms of the overall profile. Look at how much the Eastern Atlantic has cooled. Look at the warm blob over the central North Atlantic, and that's where I think the ridge, visually, I thought that's where the upper ridge is going to park itself with, again, that cool northwesterly flow continuing to drive deep cold waters to the surface. It's almost the opposite of what was seen this time last year. Remember, we had a massive marine heat wave surrounding the UK. We had the warmest June on record. This is turning out to be a very different summer overall compared to last year, isn't it? But he goes on to say that the East Atlantic is actually notably cooler than last year at this point, but the western main development region is warmer. I wouldn't be surprised if we see activity focused further west than in 2023. So he's referring to the tropics, obviously, and we already have with Beryl. Enzo also would favour that. So I thought that was quite an interesting one. And based on this profile, this change in the sea surface temperatures, this is how the upper air pattern is looking for the first the first 9 days of July here, or the first 7 days. In fact, this is the first full week. This is a tweet here by Shrine Bruin. He says, "No wonder July has been very cool so far with 500 millibar anomalies like this. Northwesterly winds fetched from a long distance across the North Atlantic, combined with a deep trough over northern Europe. The Azores high pulled into the middle of the Atlantic basin." So yes, we've seen that core of mid-Atlantic ridge further west away from the UK and Ireland, but we've also seen that region kind of allow an arcing of the jet stream. Remember the difference between these yellows and these blue colours and purpley colours. Essentially, in between that is where the mean jet stream has been positioned through the first 7 days of the month. In June, we had the high over the central North Atlantic, more troughiness over Greenland, northwesterly winds, and hence why we've seen this cooling taking place over the Atlantic. But as that sea surface temperature profile changes, the atmosphere can respond to that change as well, remember. But I have to be honest with you, I'm quite surprised at how cool this summer has been so far, and it's turning out to be quite an impressively cool summer at that. So if we look at other stats here, I'm kind of bouncing a little bit as per usual, and I do apologise if it's frustrating for some people, because it's frustrating for me. I want to try and provide something a little bit more uniform, a little bit easier, rather than bouncing back and forth between one thing or another. I try my best not to do that, but unfortunately, I have a bit of a habit of doing that. Dublin, this is again Shrine. Dublin has experienced its coldest opening third to a July since '04. Claremorris in Mayo is having its coldest since 1990. Belmullet and probably the wrong pronunciation, and Cork Airport a bit more recent since 2020 and 2011 respectively here. He also goes on to say that 2023 was both Ireland's warmest and wettest years on record. I'm not entirely surprised, of course, on that one, I must admit. But let's have a quick look at other interesting aspects. This is, by the way, with regards to my own personal site. The maximum I've had so far this July is 18.7 Celsius. Now, the maximum last July was 27.6, and that was actually achieved a few days ago last year. But the BBC has my village, which is Evanton in Rossshire, no higher than 17 through the 23rd of July. And I go on to say, is no 20 Celsius this month possible? That would be quite something. Only achieved 3 in June compared to 15 last year. And I think there was about 6 or 7 20 plus Celsius days at my personal weather station last July. So this is running really significantly below what was achieved last year. So let me just have a quick flick through to see any other interesting factors to take into consideration. Obviously, I showed you this tweet here by Aidan. Yesterday, UK summer so far has been remarkably cool by recent standards. Since the year 2000, only 1 year was this cold, from the 1st through the 8th of July, and that being 2012. So, yeah, like I say, this is turning out to be quite an impressive spell of cool conditions. And I want to just remind you, this is the last 45 days in terms of the temperature normally for the continent of Europe. So that incorporates the final days of May right the way through to the 8th of July here, and it is firmly below average conditions. And we've already looked at what we expect to see beyond that. Unfortunately, I have to go, so I'm going to round up there. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and I'll see you hopefully tomorrow with more. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so as well. I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you. Bye for now.